In his introduction to the sections model for choosing and using media for teaching and learning, Tony Bates points out that existing frameworks tend to have a very narrow focus, such as what's the best tool for teaching grade 9 geometry, or which app is best for teaching letter formation, and so on. For my Genius Hour project, I decided to develop a wide-scope framework for helping second and foreign language educators select ICT resources and tools for their classrooms. While researching my framework, I dove deep into cognitive development theory, constructivist methodology, and second language acquisition research. But first, allow me to introduce you to Jean Piaget and Lev Vygotsky. Piaget proposed that children learn by structuring knowledge into conceptual models or schemas, either fitting new knowledge into these schemas or adapting the schemas to fit new information. Vygotsky, meanwhile, suggested that children learn best when conditions are just right. Challenges are neither frustrating for the learner, nor are they too easy and boring. He called this the zone of proximal learning. While these theories may appear wildly dissimilar, they're not mutually exclusive. An educational approach called constructivism has been developed that embraces both theories to build the most effective learning environments for students. In a nutshell, educators need to create environments that are within students' zone of proximal development, while still allowing them to organize information in a way that makes sense to them. This results in meaningful activities for students and a much greater likelihood of lesson retention. Bloom's taxonomy, which has been adapted to accommodate the digital revolution, also builds on constructivist theory by classifying educational learning objectives into levels of complexity and specificity. Educators are encouraged to develop lessons at the higher levels of the taxonomy, which involve deeper levels of thought and analysis. Which brings us to second language acquisition research. Stephen Krashen and Tracy Terrell theorized that second language learners pass through 5 distinct stages of language acquisition before achieving fluency. The timeframes proposed for each stage align surprisingly well with the language proficiency outcomes in a French immersion context here in Canada. The stages are highly reminiscent of the theories I referenced earlier, as they start with very low-level thought, such as simple recall, and eventually progress to the stage where second language learners are able to think creatively in the target language. My framework aims to evaluate ICT resources based on the level of thought processes required to use a particular tool, rather than on how language is addressed in the tool. I call my framework ARC. A is for absorb, R is for recall, C is for comprehend, and the second C stands for create. Here's a quick way of understanding the categories of the ARC framework. In absorb, a student might hear a song in a second language. In recall, the student may sing the song even if they don't understand it, sort of like ABBA in their early days. In comprehend, the student understands the song, and in create, the student writes a new original song in a second language. Say you want to show a French language movie in class. This film would fit into the absorb category because it involves passively listening to or reviewing material in the target language. This isn't a bad thing in and of itself. I mean, how are students supposed to acquire new vocabulary if they don't hear it first in context? The problem with a movie is that students are a lot less likely to retain the new vocabulary because they weren't actively involved in reorganizing the information themselves. Some ICT resources only fit into 1 or 2 categories, while some are flexible enough to fit into all the categories. One example of this kind of resource is Poplet.com. Poplet is a concept mapping tool that supports several languages. Concept mapping is a favorite approach among constructivists because it can be used with even the youngest students. Poplet fits all 4 categories in the ARC framework. In the absorb category, students could arrange pre-made popples into a map while seeing images associated with their textual names in the target language. Links to audio recordings could also be added. In the recall category, students might link images to their sound and textual equivalents. In comprehend, students might adapt or utilize pre-made resources, including text, links to video and audio recordings, to create concept maps. And in the create category, students would write original text and create original resources, including video and audio recordings, in the target language to build concept maps from the ground up. Again, tools and resources that fit into the create category are more likely to lead to advanced fluency in the target language than those in the lower categories. These tools present a better investment, not just for budgetary reasons, but because once the tools have been mastered, students can spend more time using them instead of having to learn new ones, thus saving time. So that's my framework. Does it work? Does it really save teachers time and money? Does it really enhance second language acquisition? Does this framework need to be further elaborated or scrapped entirely? Only research can answer these questions definitively. In the meantime, I welcome your feedback on this new initiative and have a great winter break.